You are listening to Storymakers, the podcast for women who are ready to step into their true identity, live with meaningful purpose, find belonging and connection, grow in leadership, and walk boldly in faith. Here you can uncover the story that you were created to live because you were made for such a time as this. Hey there, Storymakers. Glad to be back with you this week. I want to talk about something that can feel very intense and very vulnerable, and it can be a little crazy. It can be a little mean, and that topic is anger. I have been angry a lot lately. I think I've said this. I have my my punching bag outside, and I've actually done some not so good things to my shoulders because I've really gone at it. But it's not like explosive anger most of the time. It's kind of like a low-grade hum under the surface, like, this weird sound in your car. And it flares up, I think, when I feel really trapped or stretched too thin, or when I get hangry, or a couple of things. We have a couple of acronyms we use. AWOL means, are you feeling angry, wounded, offended, or lonely? And then there's HALT, hungry, angry, lonely, tired. It's a couple of those crossover, but we kind of just look at them and go, okay, what's happening for you? And a lot of that comes from my work in disaster relief and our nonprofit. And I see a lot of people walk through some of that, and that angry, it's real and it's okay, right? And it finally hit me. I might actually be moving through part of a grief cycle. And it's ironic because I've taught on grief for years, in crisis response, deployments into disasters, walking people through stuff like their own loss or shock, their overwhelm. I mean, I know the stages of grief, but somehow it didn't keep me from just waking up one day kind of surprised, like, oh, I'm there. And that's the weird thing about grief. You can understand it and explain it and help other people, but still not kind of like see it hit you in the face, or, kind of like an arrow out there being shot and it's headed straight towards your own chest, but you don't see it coming. You can see it like headed towards other people or even stuck in them, but you don't see it in yourself sometimes, because that is the point of grief. You're in something. And when you're in something, it's really hard to see what's going on from an outside perspective. And honestly, I've shared this in the past few episodes, but the last season of my life has been a lot. There's been real pressure, real loss. There's been exhaustion that has kind of just helped push me into that place. And anger is it's one of the most common phases of grief that I think people easily judge or suppress or deny. And I believe that anger, for myself, for my clients, for the people in my life, I believe a lot of times anger is masking the pain, the fear, the sadness, and even the loss of control, the frustration. Like, anger shows up when something feels unfair or when expectations are not met. They collapse. There's disillusionment or disappointment. Anger happens when change occurs, and I think a lot of people experience change in their life different. Like, we all experience differently, but a lot of times I think when it happens faster than we're ready for it, it can lead to some strong emotions, and we are not always aware of what's happening. Sometimes we're going through changes in our lives and we don't even know there's change. Like, we're not aware of it. That's happened to me a lot. I see it happen a lot in my clients' lives where I can see on the outside, again, that external perspective, I can see change occurring in them or their circumstances or their seasons, and they're not aware. And I get the opportunity to invite them to awareness, right? Well, sometimes we don't always have somebody inviting us to awareness of what's going on. Yeah. So the thing is that the grief cycle, it's not linear. It's not like you move through every stage of grief and there's a preset, a predetermined amount of time that you should be in each stage. It comes in waves and you can't schedule it. You can't control it. You can't tell it when it, order it around, boss it around, tell it when it can occur on your calendar. Like you can't pencil it in. And there's denial, there's anger, there's bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And they may not always, I think sometimes people go straight to acceptance. And later on, they feel angry. Later on, they experience denial. And they wouldn't even call it denial because they're stuck in the fact that they believe they're in acceptance, right? All of these things, they can just happen and there's no warning that it's going to happen. So for me, honestly, like I've had a little bit of a perfect storm. I lost my dad and there's a new responsibility in the midst of all of that that's hard and confusing. We are moving our nonprofit, our ministry from one state to another. And my business has faced some challenges, and especially I would say mostly just from my lack of, it's just, I'm tired. And sometimes when you're a business owner, you're just tired. It's okay. It is what it is. Nobody else is going to do for me what needs to get done in my business. I often don't feel inspired right now. My basement was torn apart. That's 3 important rooms. It's not just a basement. It's like it's half of my house and important rooms. And so the house is upside down. My, just people in my life struggling with different, health issues and what my kids are going through. And I get to turn 50 this year. Yeah. That's actually, it doesn't feel like it's bothering me. But I think somewhere underneath my topical thoughts, I think it might be, I think because it signifies a change that I haven't put much attention on or stock in, and I think maybe there's something shifting. I haven't been aware of it. I haven't made it matter, but maybe it matters more than I think it does, So there's probably more things that I could add to that list. I know there are, but we're just going to leave it at that. I will say on top of it, I've also been going through for a few years this identity shift. This long season, I've been going from old narratives and to new ones, and things get triggered, things get exposed. I've been asking more of who am I now? Who do I want to be? What part of me needs to get left behind and I don't need to carry with me like a dead man across my shoulders into the next season? And what part of me is trying to show back up or come back to life or be birthed for the first time ever, right? So I think my anger that keeps coming up now, it makes sense. My fear makes sense. The overwhelm, the confusion, the frustration, it all makes sense to me. And there's nothing rationally wrong with me for having these reactions. I'm just maxed out. And I see that in myself, and I feel like I have a lot of grace for it. It doesn't mean I never question it. It doesn't mean I don't sometimes wish it was different, but I just think that anger is normal in all of us. We just all let it out like the way that we let it out. It doesn't look the same for everybody. And that's okay. It's like any emotion. What I don't think is that anger is wrong. And I know a lot of people do. I don't think that it is. I think it's an emotion God has gifted us with. And I think God gets angry. So we look like him. Bible says, be angry, but don't sin, right? The thing I want you to catch from all of this, if I can turn it around and help you contextualize what I'm sharing about myself for what you might be facing, is that you can be in a grief cycle. You can be in an identity shift all at the same time or separately. It doesn't mean failure. And grief isn't just about death. It can come from unmet expectations and change that feels forced. It can come from emotional overload. Maybe losing a version of yourself can create some type of grief. Like there's something that is missing, something that is lost, something that was hoped for that was deferred. So this season has, I think, in a way, just been stripping me back to the frame, the foundations, so that more of who I truly am, who God says I am, who I desire to be, can begin to emerge and maybe in some cases re-emerge, right? So when everything feels just too heavy to carry, I encourage you, just start small. When the grief feels heavy, the fear feels heavy, the anger, just start small and stabilize just one thing in your body, or in one room, in one part of your rhythm or your schedule. Don't go after trying to fix your whole life. Get anchored to one small place and just tell yourself, like, I'm in grief. I'm in transition. I'm in a massive, great transition. Like it, whatever it is, let it lift the shame off of you and be honest. Tell the woman in the mirror the truth. Let her be honest. Be honest with yourself. Be honest with God. He already knows. There's no reason to suppress it, no reason to hide it. And then if you feel judgment or self-criticism, exchange that for just being curious, for self-observation, and go from I'm failing or I'm wrong or I'm bad to I feel like I'm starting to notice that I am lost. I feel a little bit lost. Just allow it and go from shame to self-leadership. I would say in the middle of all of this, I was thinking about facial situations. A facial situation. Again, back to turning 50. Well, I've developed some dark spots on my cheeks that I always saw my mom have, and I never thought about it. I was just like, oh, my mom's got like that weird stuff on her skin. Well, it kind of clicked the other day for me. I have been starting to treat those spots with like some kind of serum stuff, whatever. Anyway, the bottle says it's going to get darker at first. Yeah, thank you. It's exactly what I wanted. I wanted you to make this more terrible. But it says those spots are going to get darker as you treat them daily. Then they're going to flake and peel. That's beautiful. I would pay thousands of dollars for something that will make the problem worse in multiple ways. But then it says they will lighten. So basically, it's going to get worse before it gets better, right? And I heard somebody once call it the worst first stage. And that is exactly what my internal world feels like right now. It's like all the spots are surfacing, all the layers are peeling. It's all feels more harsh rather than healed. And the worst first moment is actually kind of like proof that something's actually changing. Not that it's like falling apart, it's devastating, it's fatal, it's forever, but there's change happening and it gets worse first sometimes, right? Anyway, I was just thinking, wow, it's not just dark spots on your skin, age spots or whatever it is. Like everything is changing. Well, it's everything else in my life. Things are changing and there's grief in the change, and anger is just part of this. I want to talk also about how anger, the book of James talks about thoughts giving birth to sin, but the emotion isn't the sin. And anger is just your body's alarm system saying something feels wrong. There's been an injustice or a violation or something in your brain and your nervous system. And the danger of all of it comes when the paradigm behind your anger gets to run wild. Like you just don't, no self-leadership, no taking the thoughts captive, right? When that paradigm writes the whole story for you, that's when you're not just being angry, you begin to be destructive, like internally or externally. And so I want to talk about the Pearl practice here because it can give you some clarity. So if we look at the neutral facts, like something happened, somebody said something to you at a certain tone, somebody made a certain comment on a post you made, that you feel some disappointment or loss or stress, right? There's just something that happened that is a neutral fact, like this thing happened. And then there's the paradigm. And it's the thought like, this fact, when it occurred, I interpreted it and made it mean that I'm alone or nobody cares or I'm failing or they don't respect me, whatever it is, right? This is what James means when he's talking about thoughts give birth to sin. So the thought is like the seed that creates something, and it's either sin or self-leadership. So managing your paradigm for yourself, that self-leadership is how you take a thought captive, right? Then you have the emotion. And so that's where you feel like your anger rise and your jaw tightens up, your chest or your neck starts to feel hot or flush, or your thoughts start racing, and anxiety pops up. You feel like adrenaline, the fight, flight, freeze, fun, like all of this stuff. It is pushing through your body. The emotion is the biochemical response of what's happening, how your brain is interpreting something and experiencing. And I think out of that limbic system, like the nervous system experiencing fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, I think fight is probably the most judged, right? Like you can flee, you can freeze, you can fawn, which means they added that fourth one. Fawn is kind of like people please or reduce yourself. So God is not threatened or surprised or shocked or afraid of your anger, right? This is the point where I think a lot of us move straight into a default action, because when we're experiencing anger in that emotion path, the emotion feels so big and so powerful. And then action is where the sin can happen. So an outburst where you harm somebody with what you say, or withdrawal when you shouldn't be. It's the buffering, the scrolling, the eating or drinking or blaming or accusing or shutting down, the mean sarcasm, whatever it is. And it's not because anger is bad, but because the paradigm behind it is the one who's steering the wheel. So the result is a big hot mess. There's words that hurt people, there's regret, there's trust that's broken, shaming, like the shame tapes start playing, the spirals, the cycles, right? that leads to a legacy of if all those results keep happening, then it becomes predictable and it becomes who you are in stressful times or like whatever. But it's not who you are, but it's how you're acting. And you have to remember your behavior is not your identity. So what does it mean to be angry and not sin? It means you learn how to interrupt the chain between emotion and action. So you stop and give yourself a moment and you go, I'm angry. This is okay. It is normal to feel angry when there's been a violation or injustice or fear. And God's not scared of this. I don't have to be scared of this. I'm going to take care of myself instead. I'm not going to act out of it. I'm going to care for myself because there's a reason I feel angry. So you have to start noticing like what's going on in your body. You name the feeling. Don't let it boss you around or run you. Don't be at default. Stop and look at it. And then pause before you act from that interpretation that is screaming really, really loud in your head and telling you you have to fight, right? Stop and ask some questions. What am I believing right now? What is my paradigm? What are the thoughts that are running through my head? What is true? Like big T true. The kind of big T truth of like, what is the word saying? And what is the truth about the neutral facts as opposed to what I'm making the facts mean? What's actually happening? What hurts? What is hurting me? What am I afraid of? Like, what is going on there? And what do I need right now? Nobody else is responsible for this. Like, you and I are the only ones that are going to stop and take care of what we really need. We are the ones that have to ask. People could run around and try to, I don't know. I think when I get angry at home, they run. Nobody wants to be around angry Laura. And anger is a pretty common response from my brain and my body. I just have to learn how to what do I do with it? And will I harness it? Will I let it lead me and will I hurt people? Or will I take control of it and say, I respect that you're there and you're there for a reason. And it's my job to tend to you, but I'm not going to let you hurt other people, right? So anger is usually never the core emotion. I think it's a lot of time it's defending and protecting us because underneath there's pain, fear, disappointment. So when you allow the emotion to exist, but don't let it be the boss of you, it doesn't have the pen, it doesn't get to write the story, then you can create enough space for yourself to be able to choose intentional action and figure out what you want to do right now instead of reactive action that leads you and creates results you don't want that you're going to have regret about, right? So I think that's how we intentionally break the cycle so we can be angry but not be sinning. So it's not by pretending you're not angry, because I think that kind of suppression actually leads to more opportunity to step into the sin that we want to avoid. But instead, refuse to let anger write the script. So think about this and pay attention to moments of anger this week. And instead of reacting, pause long enough to ask yourself, what am I believing right now? What's the neutral fact? What's really true? What is the big T truth? What's God say? And what is hurting me? What am I afraid of? And what do I need right now? And then just name it and let it settle in your body, experience it, see where you feel it, and then choose one small action where you get to respond proactively to take care of yourself instead of having a default reaction that leads you and can cycle and spiral, right? So I bless you to be able to experience anger and give yourself grace for it and just love yourself well. take care of yourself, tend to your needs, and recognize, is this anger any part of the grief cycle? Like, am I actually grieving something? Has there been loss that I haven't paid attention to? Is this anger attached to it? Or is this anger attached to a violation or an injustice or a disappointment or unmet need? Or is there even an unrelented right that I'm holding on to? And a lot of that is like forgiveness, unforgiveness, resentment, bitterness, things like that, expectation. And just name it and figure out where it's coming from and give yourself some compassion and then lead yourself well. So you can do this. You're a powerful story maker. You take personal responsibility. You have high capacity and capability of doing this. The Holy Spirit's with you. And I'm for you. So have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe to the show so you don't miss any new episodes. And to learn more about me, my work, and how we can connect, visit sterlingandstonementoring.com or check the show notes. And until next time, remember, all things are possible and figure outable.